This is the story of the heinous murder of 8 young women one summer night in Chicago.
They call this the crime of the century. And I thought, there's something wrong with this. The crime story did not make sense. One of the nurses was having an affair with somebody at the hospital, and maybe somebody said something. There was something else afoot. It was a huge miscarriage of justice. I don't see her putting up with it. She might have said, "I don't like what you're doing. I'm going to tell somebody."
There are so many twists and turns in the case that occurred in 1966, and author and forensic astrologer BD Salerno believes it might just be a big fraud with plenty of behind-the-scenes drama.
They were going about their lives, getting their education, their career. Several of them were engaged to be married. What got me into it was the morning of July 14th, I saw the newspaper lying on my living room couch, and it was my loss of innocence, so to speak, because I had not heard of anything of that nature. It just hit a nerve in me that I didn't recover from, and it changed my worldview. And I always felt so sorry for those 8 women. Going forward, I became a true crime fan. Even when I was in grammar school, junior high school, I was reading psychology and I was into the paranormal. So those kind of led into astrology, the occult, and other things I'm interested in.
Hours before the murders, local drifter Richard Speck was seen at a nearby bar. He had a history of burglary and assaults on women. Speck was discovered later after a failed suicide attempt and was brought into a nearby hospital. A doctor recognized identifying tattoos, and he was later apprehended by police. It all seems like an open and shut case.
I started to file FOIA requests with the Chicago police, with every place I could think of, FBI, Coast Guard, because Richard Speck had just joined the Coast Guard in Chicago right before the murders. It snowballed. It's mind-blowing. I used to think I was tripping when I was doing this work. I was like, I can't believe, am I able to do this? Am I able to write this up? This is like freaking me out. Everybody who came in contact with this had some level of guilt. The first responder was a young police officer, came in and found Gloria Davy, who was the first one found. She was the only one found in the living room. Everybody else was upstairs in the bedrooms. And none of them, even the women who were not tied up, because a few of them were not tied up at all, no defensive wounds. Suzanne Farris was stabbed 11 times in the back and 7 times in her chest and partially in her throat. She had no defensive wounds. How does that happen? Saturn, 29 Pisces rising retrograde. That is so nasty. It's as nasty as it gets. It's at the very end of its rope of evil.
Yes.
And it rules the 12th of the hidden enemy and hospitals. Guess what? They all worked at a training hospital. They were not students. They had their nursing licenses, but the hospital put them up in housing with student nurses. The other 5 were Americans. 4 of them were like a tightly knit clique, and they were kind of boisterous. They were kind of rowdy. The Filipino nurses were very quiet. They were very timid. They were new in this country.
Richard Speck was identified as the murderer and said he didn't remember anything since he was under the influence of drugs and alcohol. Now comes the witness, and her name is Corazon, heart in Spanish, and representative of Leo. In any crime chart, Mercury can also show what someone is called. She is called Corazon.
Her police statement completely contradicted what she testified to at trial 9 months later.
Mercury gives a description of the witness, in this case, Leo, meaning a lot of hair. Mercury rules Gemini and stands for someone who speaks, but over the years, has she said conflicting things? BD Salerno believes she did.
People called her a hero. She was brave. She was the best witness ever. Her morals were impeccable. No one ever questioned it. Here and there, in the recent past, people have. The thing I want to say about the moon is I see that as the nurses, and I love the fixed stars. To me, they are like paintings of a scenario, so to speak. That is the fixed star Alcyone, which is in the Pleiades, also known as the Seven Weeping Sisters. Marianne Jordan wasn't supposed to be there. There were supposed to be 7 victims. So 7, that's a really unfortunate moon on that fixed star. Marianne Jordan joined her best friend Suzanne, and they were killed together. Suzanne was getting married to Marianne's brother. Marianne is just an unfortunate collateral damage. She wasn't even supposed to be there. There was a tip that came in to the prosecutor's office. It came in the same day that Speck was indicted. The tip said it came from a politician in Buenos Aires. It was bizarre. He had written this and said, listen, I was in Chicago during the murders, and I have firsthand knowledge that Richard Speck did not commit these murders, and I can prove it. Because one of the doctors at the hospital was, quote, an intimate friend of one of the nurses. I devoted pretty much half a chapter in my book to what Chicago police said versus what the FBI said. They had nothing in common. Guess what? The knife was not long enough to have made some of the stab wounds. I wrote a whole chapter on all the weird things that started to snowball while I'm doing my research. A lot of weird things. I had to put it in the book. I couldn't not put it in the book.
When you join my channel, you can check out the full podcast with BD Salerno. Thanks for watching.